Cool. All right. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ashik. I'm the CEO at Deputy. It's been a long time coming for us to talk about what we're about to talk about today. When Steve Shelley and I founded Deputy about will be 10 years later this year, our vision was that we will really simplify workforce management. We want to be the second in charge to business owners and managers, so that they don't have to work in the business. Okay, they can be working on the business. And usually, when people become a manager, they end up working in an office, always spending time in spreadsheets and texting and just communicating with their staff member, trying to get the right people in the right shift. And we have been at this journey for quite some time to really streamline this so that you can be out of that office and spending more time with your team and with your customer. And the auto scheduling over here is probably at the pinnacle of that vision in terms of what we are planning to do for our customer. Now, before I go into it, let me just cover what the picture looks like in the ideal world. We vision that you or your managers will be logging into Deputy. I've got a sample business running over here, and they will just come and hit the auto button, and that will go and build your complete schedule out. You don't have to go sit in there trying to figure out, hey, am I meeting the demands of the business? Have I got the right stuff in the right place? Am I looking after the profitability of the business? All these things are taken care for you. If I can draw the comparison to what, for example, Elon Musk's vision is with autopilot in Tesla. Once again, you just get in the car and press a button and you go to your destination, and not have to worry about anything as far as knowing the route or having the best route to get to that destination or avoiding traffic incidents in there. That's the same kind of vision we have for what auto scheduling will deliver for our customers in there. But as you saw, I pressed that auto button and it actually has created my shift structure in there. It's going, and I'm completely fulfilling the shift needs in there. But while it's doing that, I'm actually going to break it down in terms of how it's doing it and what it is doing to achieve this goal. First of all, workforce planning or rostering or scheduling, however you want to say it, it's actually more than just telling an employee when they're coming to work. I recently met a customer who actually has put it in a really beautiful context. If you think about the ocean, I've got and that's probably the best photograph I can find of what the ocean would look like for my analogy over here, is that think of workforce planning is like the ocean, where the base of the ocean, the sea level is always the same in here. But then you have your low tide and then your high tide. Now, high tide is actually your demands are really high and you're scheduling more people to meet that demand. Whereas low tide is, the business is not that busy. You need to still, meet the base demand of the business. But the base of the ocean is not actually changing. And to cover with that, to put that into context for your business, think about base as, there's always going to be a manager, that's all. It doesn't matter whether there is any customer or not, rain, hail, or shine, you actually have at least one cashier there, for example, or the manager can be fulfilling the role of the cashier in there. So you need to almost think about how you're planning your workforce in terms of hey, what's my base and what's my pick and truck in terms of fulfilling the need in there. And using that context, I'll actually also jump into exactly how Deputy is fulfilling that in there for you. While it's building that schedule in there, let me just quickly cover what are the components that's involved in building that. By the way, forgot to mention this. If you have any questions or anything that you want to ask about, I mean, we obviously have some previous questions that we'll be going through. Please feel free to put it in the chat in this webinar or directly in the questions and answers. And at the end of this webinar, we'll definitely go and cover those questions in there. So coming into it, if you think about auto scheduling as this one button feature, there's actually a number of things that are happening in there. First thing that happens over here is what does the shift pattern look like? I mean, should I start a shift at 7 o'clock versus 8 o'clock? How many people do I have working at different times of the day? These things are what's known as in Deputy right now is a required staff count. On top of that, but to get to that required staff count, you actually almost need to come up with your demand signals. Like, hey, in this sample business I'm showing you right now, this is, for example, a coffee shop. We have number of different departments where people can work, and for that coffee shop, like our demand signals, we're actually selling two basic things over here. We're selling sandwiches, for example, and we're selling coffee. Kitchen, for example, doesn't make sandwich. Okay, sorry, kitchen makes sandwich, but they don't do the coffee. But the barista over here is responsible for making coffees over here. And the more coffees we're selling, the more baristas will require to fulfill that need. Whereas in kitchen, it's more about how many sandwiches we're selling, and these are what we call these demand signals. And there's a way to drive that demand signal into your required staff count. And once we have required staff count, we can actually go and create a shift template. And once we actually can create a shift template, we can actually put the right people into the right shift. So now that I've described it, let me go and show you exactly how it's going in there. So first of all, in the latest release of Deputy that we launched last week, you can actually go add as many metric as you like. Previously, we only used to do sales, and the sales obviously has been driving from, be it you're uploading via a point of sale software integration. We have like Vend, Counter, Square, Revel, EPOS, various solutions in there, as well as you can just upload a CSV file in via an automated Dropbox connection, or you can actually go and also straight upload it into Deputy from this screen. But sales may not actually just tell you what is involved directly. Like you can have a group of 5 people come in and order 10 sandwiches, and that might be $100 versus 100 people coming and all order a bunch of different coffees, and that can equate to $100 sale as well. But it's not, it doesn't give you the picture of exactly what has happened for the demand of the business. So that's why we have gone in and added the capability of you being able to add as many different metrics as you like. So to do that, if you go to if you go into rostering, and I'm actually in the daily mode because it helps it explain better. You can go into the graph, and if you just scroll down, you'll see this add metric button. And if you hit the add metric button, you can add any new metric. So for example, let's just, along with selling coffees and sandwiches in there, I've started selling muffins now, for example, and I'm going to add that as a unit. I can also give it a different color, and I can also put in what's known as demand prediction. Now, what demand prediction is actually is that you can actually go into Deputy and put the number of units you're going to sell. However, if you haven't input that data for some time in future, for example, Deputy can make a guesstimate of what it might be. And to do that, it can look at, for example, hey, how you have done it in last 2 weeks. And in Deputy, you can schedule in a fortnight or 2-week view, or a weekly view, or a 4-week view. Whatever view you're looking at, it will go look back similar number of periods in past. So exactly how it performed in last 2 period, or 4, 6, or exactly the same week this time last year as well. So you can definitely put these predictions in there, or you can do all time. In the previous, until latest release, sales data has been all time, and that's the default setting at the moment. But you can obviously go and change that so that over summertime your sales might be going up, and over winter it may be dying down. So doing all time doesn't necessarily portray the real picture in there. So probably last two periods at its minimum can definitely tell you how Deputy can predict the data in there. But the prediction is a prediction, okay? It doesn't necessarily dictate what in reality will happen. So you can always go and enter the data manually as well. To give you an example, I'm actually going to say, for example, the sandwich sales in there. And you can see that there's some data that is entered over here. This is not data that has been entered. This is all prediction data. But I can actually go and up it. Like, what this next Thursday, we might be having a big event in there, and I'm nearby, so I'm expecting higher sales. And I can go, I'm expecting I'll be doing 30% more than what I'm actually doing. And I can, 30% might be the best number. So let's say I'm doing 100% more than what I'm doing over here. And, just quickly double all the figures in there, because it's going to be a really, really busy period. So in Deputy, you can once again go in and quickly update the figures. Or else, let's just say it's Christmas Day, and nothing can predict in terms of how the Christmas is, how Christmas has happened in past, or probably Deputy doesn't have the data because you weren't a customer of Deputy back in last Christmas. You can also go in and import from a very specific date. We're predicting, say, Black Friday, this is how we're going to perform. And you can go and put the data from, just go back in history and pick that date and input that data. Or else you can actually also go and, leave it at all time, but manually just alter the data by averaging what has been happening in the last few weeks. Add it, and if you really like to control it, you can also go and upload the data, or just manually type it in as well. So you're not limited to how in past Deputy has been just predicting the data, and you didn't actually have control of dictating these figures. Now you actually can go in and have full control in how you're putting your demand signals into Deputy. Anyway, so that's actually about demand signals. And by the way, just to cover this, the 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. that you're seeing, this is actually a location opening time and closing time, which you can go and edit from. If I actually go into the coffee shop over here in the scheduling screen, you can actually control that over here. That's where the graph is picking data from. Let me just head back into scheduling one more time. Actually, this had actually completed my schedule in there, which I left before. So as you can see, I pressed that one button, it created my entire shift in there, and actually had gone and put all the people in there. And I'll come to that in a second in terms of what it has done. So you can, just in a value proposition perspective, you could sit there, create each of the sheet, put the right people in there, and test out A versus B to see that, hey, which one is the better version or not. Or you can press that one button and let Deputy handle it for you. But this is the fun part that I'll come in a second. But let me just go back to the schedule I was actually showing you for next Thursday. Now, once I actually have put in my demand signals, I'll just actually remove this day's schedule. Once I actually put all my demand signals for in terms of how much I'm expecting to sell, or coffees and sandwiches in there, I can then go to required stuff. Now, in required stuff is what in terms of, hey, this is how much we have. This is how much we are predicting in terms of what the business will be selling or will need to meet the demand of. But how does it equate to how many number of staff members do we need to fulfill that need? This is where this required stuff come in. And in required stuff, you're actually going in and putting in, for example, once again, you can go and type the numbers in, but you'll get a build button over here. And you can say that, hey, for every 10 coffees and 5 sandwiches, don't worry about the manager bit, I need 1 barista and 1 person in kitchen. I'll zero the other thing. And based on this, Deputy actually can go and build your required stuff count in there. Now, this may seem very simple, and actually for most use cases, you should be able to utilize it to get some level of guidance. If you are actually a deputy enterprise customer, in deputy enterprise, we actually take it one step further. And I'll just quickly do a sneak peek of it. In deputy enterprise, along with having the simple mode, you can also go into an advanced mode. And in advanced mode, you can actually put in some real complex formulas over here where you can drive to an outcome metric. An outcome metric can be, for example, hey, we don't want to go over a cost per hour metric of say $600 per hour. Okay. Having said that, we're expecting anywhere between 1 to 10 sandwiches per 15-minute block, as well as 1 to 5, for example, coffees we're selling in per 15-minute block. And based on the demand metrics that are coming in Deputy Enterprise, you can actually have it completely build out the record stuff count in there. And on top of that, you can have these advanced recipes there, which automatically triggers in, for example, for rainy day or for public holiday in there. Through our built-in DXML and customization engine, Deputy is capable of almost doing every single thing that you can do under the sun as far as truly predicting and matching your staff signals, or your demand signals and your record staff count is concerned. Matter of fact, internally in our own Deputy, we actually have an internal Deputy ourselves in there. And this is this business I'm showing over here. We actually track a number of different things. Obviously, for privacy reasons, I'm not showing all the details. But like, for example, when you chat to us in Intercom, a product we use, that's like the number of chats we are actually covering every 15-minute block, as you can see in there. Demo bookings that are happening at our website, customers that are signing up in there, conversions in terms of when a trial customer become a paying customer. These are all the different metrics that we actually track ourselves so that we know how to schedule our 24/7 call center ourselves. So yeah, we are drinking our own Kool-Aid in that we are trying to bring to our customer, and we believe it's really capable of solving a lot of things as far as workforce planning is concerned. So anyway, jumping back in again. So once I actually have my record staff count, so think about this. I'm saying that around 1 p.m. I need 7 baristas in there, and around they started that too. But as the day died down over here, I actually don't need that many baristas anymore, because in the afternoon I'm probably not selling as many coffees I need to sell. By the way, you can do it hourly block, as you can see, and you can also go into 15-minute blocking there. So it's really about how micro or macro manage you want to be in your business. You can do it in both ways in there. So once I actually have established those staff count in there, actually I have no shift at all. Okay, I can hit that auto button, which will do the schedule. But if I actually break down the auto button, it's actually doing 2 things. The first thing it does is actually you need to build out the shift structure. In the shift structure, you are actually going to come up with a shift patterns that meet those number of required staff count. Like in that example, I'm saying that, hey, I need 7 baristas over here at 1 p.m. But I'm not gonna bring somebody to work for 1 hour. Okay, labor laws actually prohibit me from bringing somebody to work at minimum of 3 hours in there, for example. So in order to cater for that, what we do over here is that you actually define, what are the shift lengths, and you can have as many different shift lengths as possible. When people are starting working, do they start working exactly on the hour or 15-minute block or half hourly? You can have that. I'm actually doing it on the required staff count right now, but there's other things it can do, such as providing minimum coverage, as well as if you haven't entered your required staff count, it can automatically learn from what you have done in past hours. In terms of it will see that, hey, this is how I've been scheduling in past. 5 people have been working as a barista, or 7 people has been working as a barista, and it can build from that. Obviously, it's a bit of a machine learning going over here, but the thing about machine learning is it's garbage in, garbage out. It can probably work really, really well, but it may also not work very well in terms of you run it for the first time. But the way to take true control of it is actually the fact that you're providing record staff count. But anyway, now that I have put that in, I can actually go just build shifts. And what Deputy will now do is it will look into what your staff count was in there and automatically try to create those shifts to meet that demand. As you can see, at my peak at 1 p.m., I was expecting about 15 people to be in the business. It's the absolute peak time in there. And I have got about 15 people working in there. But you would go, hang on a second, why do you have 16 people working around 12 o'clock when there is actually, I needed 11 people in there. The reason behind that is for us to ensure that you have the minimum number of the minimum length of the shift is met, we have to bring somebody a little bit forward, someone a little bit backward to give them those the staff count, their minimum number of hours in there and still meet the demand for the business. And that's how actually Deputy goes and build your shift pattern out. So as opposed to you going, I need 7 people at 1 o'clock, but when should they start? When should they finish? Can they do these other things or not? You having to do that complex maths in your head, we are actually automatically doing that for you in the background. Now, you can definitely do it like this, but I'm just going to actually reverse myself, reverse what I have done over here and go through it one more time. And bring back to the original analogy I talked about. Think about the ocean, what you have your base, and think about how the peaks and troughs of the demand of the business. You need to cater for that one. So in best case, what you would do actually is that I would say that you actually have your what the base case of the business is saved as a shift template. And I'm going to go and load that template in there. And in my template, what I've actually said is the fact that, hey, I actually need a manager always working. And my manager is really doing a 12-hour day over here to ensure that he's the first person to open and the first person to close. He probably has a break in the middle. And I am also saying that, hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to have some cleaners that's going to clean the business, clean the premises over here as we're shutting down. But I don't really want to worry about, how many baristas or kitchen people I need. Now, what's great about auto scheduling is that it augments you. It doesn't override you. Okay. Or it's not like, if you do auto scheduling, that's it. You can't really take control of it. I can actually now go and build my shift structure out, and it will automatically, now what we'll do that as it's trying to build the shift structure out, it will observe the fact that, hey, you already have put the manager in there. It will not try to override what you have done. It will respect what you have put in to cover the need of the business. But in other departments where you actually haven't put enough shifts in there, it will go augment that to once again to ensure that you are meeting the need of the business in there. So it's not a binary all or nothing kind of approach. It's actually, you can take control of things. Even if after the auto schedule has created a shift, you can actually go in and alter it till your heart content to get it right, for example. Anyway, that's actually about the shift building structure in terms of how it drives from the required staff count to your shift structure in there. So we have covered demand signal. We have covered how required staff builder works in there, as well as how to create your shift structure. Now, the final part is, okay, now that I have all these empty shifts, how do I ensure that I put the right people in there? Now, once again, if you press that auto button, that's all covered for you already. But if I break it down to its next level, is that the fact that I actually have this capability now to go in and fulfill those shift needs with the right kind of people in there. Now, let's just say that Aaron over here gets paid $15 per hour versus Alyssa who gets paid $20 per hour. Now, if I wanted to keep my cost as low as possible, Alyssa will be getting quite a lot of work and Aaron might not be getting any work at all. And obviously, if Aaron is not getting work, Aaron might not actually continue working for you because he has to earn his living somewhere. But at the same time, you actually have the need to look after the business where you actually want to optimize your minimize your cost over here, but try to provide equal number of working hours to all your staff members. That's what this screen actually allows you to do. This function actually allows you to do. So I can go and fulfill these 29 empty shifts that I've created in there. I can say that, hey, you can actually say that, hey, I don't care about providing equal number of hours in the shift. I just want to keep my cost as low as possible, and that's fine. And you can just go with it. But you can also go like, you know what, hey, I want to keep my cost as low as possible, but while keeping the cost as low as possible, I also want to provide equal number of hours for employees who are working. I can also do, hey, learn from the past in terms of hey, what I have done in past or what has worked in past. Like, for this Thursday, I might be putting Alyssa into this shift, but Alyssa, for example, goes and continuously trades this shift with somebody else. So what's the point of putting Alyssa into that shift when she might not be working at all? So that's where actually this learn from me learn from me comes in. It actually will go and see that, hey, what is the likelihood that Alyssa will be doing that shift or not? And, probably de-preference her as opposed to putting her into that preference in there. And then what happens is that, and I'll show that in a second when I hit the autofill button. What Deputy will do now is like the Deputy will go and really cover all the possible scenarios that's possible to create that shift. Now, so what it's doing now is like, first of all, it will go find, hey, who is recommended to work in these areas? What it won't ever do is put the non-recommended employee into a shift ever. We are not going to break the law or rule in terms of what restriction you have set in the business. We're not going to put somebody on shift who is on vacation, for example, or they have an unavailability submitted. Those sort of things you are going to make the call on, but within the boundaries of all, we will go and try to come up with a shift. And as you can see already, it has gone through 35,000 different possible combinations of shift, and it's actually comparing across all those metrics that we have specified. The fact that, hey, I want to keep my cost as low as possible, but at the very same time, I want to provide equal number of hours. And it will come up with one version of roster, and then we'll come up with another version of roster. And it will try to compare this version versus that version to see that, hey, which one is better than the other one. And once it comes up with the roster that actually is meeting all these needs and also keeping the cost as low as possible in there, it will automatically go fill those shifts out for you. So as you can see, it's, something like this is probably not humanly possible in there in terms of like sitting and trying all this possible. It's literally doing a brute force way of coming up with what should be the ultimate schedule for you and meeting all those metrics. It's not necessarily this is one of those things what's known as in computer science, for those who are interested, is as a traveling salesman problem. You try going this route versus that route versus another route. And what we have actually done, and thanks to the power of cloud computing now, is that we can really use our cloud computing resources to try all these possible combinations of rosters and really come up with the right, with the best schedule that's possible in there. I couldn't possibly say that what is the ultimate schedule, but I can possibly say that it will be better than what a human can do. What the ultimate schedule is in there is something that's $1 million prize out at the moment in terms of solving the traveling salesman problem. But we have taken an approach in terms of, hey, trying all sorts of different algorithms in there, and you leverage the computing power to come up with a really, really great schedule in there. Now, even if it not, for example, I'm going to remove all the employees in there. Now, there's some things that, for example, might be stuck in your head that Deputy doesn't know about yet. For example, hey, these two employees doesn't, for example, want to work with each other, or they should not be working with each other because there has been an HR incident or something like that, or you want to give minimum of 20 hours for a particular grade of employees. These things, for example, might be in your head, but Deputy doesn't know about it yet. We actually have these advanced recipes, like what we like to call, is where you can actually put a little syntax in there, and Deputy will cover this sort of scenarios for you and trying to build those schedules out. And we're happy to, just reach out through Intercom, and we're happy to provide some of these sample examples to you. They're actually sitting as open source on GitHub. And lots of different things are possible in here. It's things such as hey, if you are actually a part-time employee, then you must get at least 20 hours of work per week, for example. Or if you are full-time, must get at least 40 to 45 hours in there. Just because you're higher cost doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get the work that which is part of your contract in there. So yeah, auto-schedule is definitely capable of covering all sorts of different scenarios in there. We want to keep it really simple, like you can just go in and press the button to get it done. But because of simplicity, we don't definitely want to sacrifice on power and the unique needs of the business actually have. I mean, myself, coming at the back of aviation in my past life, workforce planning can be really, really complex. Different businesses operate in different ways. And we want to make sure that every business is run the very best it can be run in there. And that's the intention behind what we have done in here. So that basically covers in terms of what what auto scheduling is doing. By the way, this is our first launch into it. It's probably not at its 100% perfectness it can be, but we're an agile company. Those who are deputy customer, you'll see that we are continuously improving our offering. It's not something that you bought and you're stuck with it. Rather, you are on a journey where this will get better. Every time you're actually running auto scheduling, we're actually gathering quite a lot of a metric that, hey, what auto scheduling did, how right it was or how wrong it was. And over time, those sort of data will go into building the next auto scheduling updates in there. And I mean, my personal vision one day is that you're not even actually having to do scheduling. You don't even have to log in to press that one button. Matter of fact, we would do this scheduling. You'll get a push notification saying that, hey, your scheduling is done. That's how much it's going to cost. That's what your productivity index looks like. And just hit publish, and it's done for you. And we're not there yet. We'll get there one day. But this is our first step in driving to that direction. Anyway, that's basically what I had to cover in terms of what it can do, or what are our goals in there. There's been some questions that actually was pre-submitted, and there's some questions that are coming in there, and I'll definitely cover that. One of the questions actually was, how can I import customer bookings from my calendar service into Deputy? Now, for point of sale, obviously we have all the different integrations built in. So if I go to deputy.com/integrations, if I remember the URL correctly, in there, there's a whole lot of point of sale providers that we already connect with, and you can definitely bring in the data. But if it's not one of these products, or if it's calendar booking system, one of the app that I really like, and this is actually how the Deputy internal graphics are done, is Deputy is actually available as an app in Zapier. And in Zapier, what you can do, you can actually take any data from 1,000 different apps they have, like in a Google Calendar, Office 365, or something like that, and automatically create what I like to call is a sales data inside Deputy. Now, it is called sales data in Zapier, but it can be, the sales data has different attribute to it. An attribute to the sales data, it can be the fact that it's a coffee sold, or it's a sandwich sold, or it's actually purely sales in there. So yes, you can link up your Google Calendar service or any other booking calendar service to Zapier, and from Zapier drive that into Deputy. The other question we had is that how do we cater for seasonal demand? I believe I've answered that in terms of how you can go and manually put in the data, or have the capability of your prediction in terms of how you are doing that. For seasonal, I think same period last year would be the best way to look at it. Or I mean, businesses usually transform. One thing about business is that, you're always continuously growing. Hardly ever it's actually static in there. And if it's in a growth mode, you definitely want to put it in, like, in last 2 periods. But you can also cater for the fact that, you can go into that specific metric and bulk update every figure by a specific percentage in there. Now, this is a serious question. What does Deputy do with imported customer data? Your data is your property. We do not do anything with it. We do not actually take the data or do anything like Facebook with Cambridge Analytica or anything like that at all. Matter of fact, it's your data. And if you want to see what data actually Deputy has imported, you can always go into, and we'll publish this as part of the help documentation. I believe it's already in there. You can see what data has been imported into Deputy by going to this URL we have. Let me just quickly go in there from memory. You can actually go in and see every bit of sales data that has been imported already into Deputy. And matter of fact, you can clear all the data out right from there and remove it if you want to. So these are some of the pre-submitted questions that we have covered through. I'm just going to quickly review the questions that have been submitted over here. On the questions we have, is it possible for auto scheduling to schedule 2 employees 2 days off in a row? Look, 100% possible. It's not necessarily an auto scheduling thing. You would put that as a stress profile in Deputy, and you can put in the stress profile in Deputy is the fact that, hey, you don't want to, minimum hours gap between 2 shifts you can do in there. It actually also has capability in putting in scripts that, and many of our customers actually use it where, hey, they were only doing, say, 3 days, but if they do 3 night shift, they're getting 2 days off, for example, that kind of scenario. So yes, it is capable of covering those kind of scenario and having a help out. It's not out of the box, but definitely capable to the extensive capability of Deputy's scripting capabilities. Okay, in hospitality industry, I would like to rotate weekends off between staff so the same staff are not forced to work every weekend. Great question. Great question. Okay, so how would I go cover that in there? Once again, this is something that is possible through the scripting capability on our stress profile. Definitely something that you want to provide fair number of hours to your employees so that people are getting weekends off sometimes and having a life, or those who want to earn more money over weekends, they're doing that. We're taking a note of that thing, and we'll definitely publish it in the blog in terms of how you can go and implement that in Deputy in there as well. Cool. Any other question? Okay. We're a multi-location medical practice. The number of staff we need is not based on sales, etc., but how many doctors are working. How could we enter this into the metric? We also have a company policy that full-time staff are rostered prior to part-time staff. Is there something we need to use advanced recipes for? Great question. Yes and no. Definitely you can do it through advanced recipes. But the way I would actually try to solve it, if it was myself in there, is that I would actually go and create the areas separately in terms of the part-time doctors as full-time doctors, and yet have the the maximum number of required staff count not exceeding a certain value, and I would be rostering them in those specific departments accordingly in there. That would be the easy way of achieving this straight out of the box. But the complex way of doing it, or the more advanced way of doing this, would be through a recipe. Is that always prioritize full-time staff member in giving a shift, as opposed to giving that to part-time staff members in there. Okay. Sujin, the Zapier connection continues to reach so to reconnect multiple couple of weeks. What can I do? Look, this is a support question on the Zapier connectivity issue. Please reach out to us in our support chat system, and we'll definitely look into it for you. We use Zapier quite heavily ourselves, in there. Every bit of metric that I was showing you in here actually is driven from intercom and Zapier straight into Deputy. Cool. Any other specific questions in there? Cool. Look, I mean, it seems like we have definitely covered most of our questions in there. Okay, question over here. How can I enter a daily demand metric for, let's say, the next month based on my forecasted booking or client provided information? So let me go and demonstrate that. So if I go into monthly mode, and I will, for example, go into next month in May. Okay. Now, I may have been provided some information. I may not have been provided some information. So what I will do over here, say for the first day of the month, I can go in and enter some data over here, whatever that might be. Like I'm expecting to really sell a lot of coffees that month. Okay, I'm putting the data in there, and then, as opposed to saving the data for this Tuesday, 1st of May, you can actually save it for the entire view in there, okay? Or entire, and in this case, for the week in there, and I can go and when I press the button, it will actually go, not just for that day, it will save it for that whole week. Other way of doing the same thing over here will be the fact that, hey, you go and upload that information directly in a CSV file, or have some level of integration through Zapier or via Dropbox where we're importing the data in for you. Can we set up individual staff profiles for set days of minimum contract hours, etc.? Also set rotating shift at different locations, etc. Yes, that's definitely possible. These are the things that advanced recipes are capable of doing. And by the way, these are great questions. I mean, obviously we're not. It's one of those things. I mean, at Deputy we want to make sure that it's very simple and easy to use, but it's not like 10,000 different checkboxes you can put in. And every business is run very differently. But to answer this question, there's part product, there's part customization, there's part business that actually all three together actually solve this problem. So if you want to actually set up individual staff profiles for set days off, that is achieved through putting people's unavailability into the system in there. The minimum contract hours, once again, is something that the advanced recipes will be covering in there, and rotating shift in different locations. Look, on that note, hey, I will work 3 days over here, 4 days over on the other place. Yes, once again, advanced recipes is capable of doing that. But if the business is already so determined in terms of how it will function, in my opinion, the best way to solve this is actually using templates, not necessarily auto scheduling. Auto scheduling is more about the fact that, hey, your business has very variable demand in there, and that's how you're driving that. But 100% auto scheduling is capable of doing what you are after through the recipes. But out of the box right now, you can achieve all these functions, questions you have asked, purely by setting stress profiles, unavailabilities, and specific templates for the business. Can you put in a schedule for employee? So can you put in a set schedule for an employee, for example, it was only available Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday? The way once again we do this is not by setting a set schedule, but you can actually go into Deputy and for example, put in their availabilities in there. So you don't go say that, hey, this is when they want to work. You set in the fact that, hey, they don't want to work on, for example, on weekends at all. And I can actually have it that, hey, repeats forever in there. This employee will not ever come up as recommended on weekends. You can go and override it if you like, but it's definitely covered through having that as a stress, as a employee preference in there. How accurate is push data from counter into deputy? I found that the sales figures not always is the same between both platforms. Does deputy need to pull in recorded or counted sales figure? Look, prediction is something that is not necessarily easy to get right. It's something that we're continuously working in making better. Your historical sales should be accurate in terms of what you have in any point of sale and what you have in deputy. And if it's not right, please reach out to support and we will investigate to find out why it's not right for you. But based on what you have done in past is what we'll be using for predicting what will happen in future. And you can set that whether you're using last 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or all time in there. Historically speaking, it's probably set at all time in your configuration. So please feel free to go modify it and make it last 2 weeks or last 4 weeks in there. Next question. To automate it all, did you have all employee settings to match the automation? As in, did each employee have a different stress profile or training added, etc.? The more data you put into deputy, the better it will be. So as I was saying, when it comes to auto scheduling, we are actually not going and trying to, for example, I'll go back into the weekly mode in there. We're actually never going to go and put a non-recommended employee into a shift. And this is a bit of background information how scheduling is done in deputy. Is that when I actually go create a shift, deputy will automatically recommend who are the people that can work in the shift. Now, to do this recommendation, deputy does about 6 separate checks. Number 1, these employees are not double booked to work somewhere else. Number 2, they're actually available. For example, they haven't got a planned vacation that has been approved, or they're not, for example, they haven't submitted unavailability saying that, hey, I don't want to come to work or something like that. Number 3, it will actually check that the fact that they're trained and qualified to work in there. And in deputy, you can go in and obviously establish that, what are the training and to be able to work in there, you must have this training, for example, in there. And you can go and set up unlimited number of trainings in there. So yes, you need to be trained and qualified to work in that area. And finally, you if you want to have the fact that they are preferred to work in the area. Now, training and preference work kind of exclusively, because I might have my whole workforce trained, but I only want these 3 employees to work in the VIP area, for example. That's how preference actually works. So it will do every time you create a shift in deputy, it actually does all 6 separate checks overhead to recommend who are the people that can work in that shift in there. So yes, the more data you provide into deputy in terms of these boundaries and requirements, the better the deputy scheduling will function. Okay. Okay, being able to configure part-time and full-time workers require a certain amount of hours. But what if they all very uniquely easy? For example, a particular employee, Heather, who can do 15 hours minimum, and Laura, who also part-time requires 20 hours. Yes, you're capable of setting that in the advanced recipe. Like I'm getting quite a lot of questions on that. So at the follow-up of this webinar, we will post some content on how to achieve that in deputy using the recipes in there. Can you specify peak times when deliveries come in and you need to schedule more people? 100%. You can do that. You can definitely go add a metric that what deliveries you're expecting, and then based on that you can have additional staff members at that time who needs to be there to cater for those deliveries in there. Yes, that is truly doable. Do leave requests need to be approved for the builder to work? Yes, in a sense, what's happening over here is that like, I mean, every time we are recommending staff member, every time we are putting a staff into a shift, we are never going to put somebody who is not recommended to work in that area. So if the employee actually has leave that is approved, then yes, they won't be coming up in the recommended summary. But if the leave actually is declined or pending approval, then yes, they might get scheduled for that shift. So, but if you have approved that shift, if the employee has been rostered for a shift by auto scheduler, and when you're approving that leave in Deputy, you can actually see that, hey, by approving this leave, these are the shifts that are going to be uncovered for. You are actually capable of automatically turning those shifts into open shifts for other employees to get, or leave them as empty shifts. And you know what? After you leave them as empty shift, you can just come in and run an auto scheduler again, and it will, cover those shifts for you automatically in there. Do you need to have a certain level of clearance for the builder to work? No. If you can schedule, you are capable of running the auto builder in place. But if you are supervisor level access in there, you probably will not be able to see some of the metric. Now, for example, when I actually add a metric in Deputy, you will see that there's two kinds of metric. One is like unit figures. This is like, irrespective of dollar figures, I'm selling 10 coffees versus 5 coffees, or I have that many bookings in there, or you have dollar amount. You can have as many different kind of metrics as you like in there. If you are supervisor level access where you can't see, for example, cost figures in there, you won't be getting visibility into the dollar figures or dollar figure metric in there. So that's the only permission restriction in there. But if obviously you're a location manager, administrator, or in Deputy Enterprise, you have really set the fact that, hey, they can view cost in there. Yes, you're capable of seeing that in there. We're happy to revisit that option with discussion with customers. We're a very agile company, and we know that you don't get everything right in one go. So we constantly listen to our customers and provide options on how we can improve. So absolutely, that's something that we'll happily listen to our customers for. Question: will the auto schedule straddle a worker across 2 departments in the same shift to minimize cost in slower period, and so that avoid overscheduling and increased cost? Great question. Great question. Right now, the way we work in Deputy is that, hey, you are actually you can't be in 2 different places. So you can't be working across 2 different departments at the very same time. In order to achieve that, what you need to actually probably create a combined department, in the sense that, hey, if you work over here, you're actually performing both functions at the same time, and you can cater for that in that through that department setup. But look, I mean, this is something that we are actually working on in terms of future updates, where the best cost savings in businesses come when you actually get to cross-utilize your workforce into multiple different functions, as opposed to make it really, really functions specific. And in Deputy, right now, the only way to do that is you create a combined department and assume the responsibilities of this combined department, that they are actually covering 2 separate things at the same time. But in future, we will be working on a product update where hey, you might be working in just this department, but by working in this department, you're actually covering the needs for these other departments in there. Something that we are working on right now. And this is the exact scenario and kind of questions that problems we want to solve for our customers. Okay, question over here. How does the expected or unexpected exit of an employee handled? In Deputy, if there is an employee who actually has shifts in there, and for example, you need to, they have left the business, you discard an employee record. And when you discard that employee record, you actually get to see all the different shifts that are, pending in there. We actually don't, recommend termination because at that point, until those shifts are handled, where if from that screen, you can quickly jump straight into that shift, for example, and you can put that shift into a separate employee. And one of the best ways of doing this is if I actually go into, say, monthly mode. Let's just say Aaron is somebody who is going to move on from the business. I'm going to find Aaron shifts. These are all the shifts Aaron has got scheduled in this in the month of April. I can actually go and do bulk update. And bulk update, what I want to say that, hey, these are all the Aaron shifts over here, and I'm going to go and give it to, for example, David Kidd, and apply update. And this will actually take all of Aaron's shifts and put to David. Or even better, I can actually now this is the power of auto scheduling clicking in. I actually will go and remove Aaron from all these shifts. Okay, now all those shifts actually is automatically removed from Aaron. And you can see there's got a bunch of empty shifts that are sitting that Aaron actually already had done these 2 shifts. So I can remove that. And now I can actually turn all those shifts over here into open shift by going into those shifts in there, or I can actually just autofill these empty shifts, and then I don't have to worry about who's going to pick up Aaron's shifts in there. It will be automatically put into other people in terms of whoever doesn't have those shifts in there. Got 2 minutes left to cover. My team is giving me the hurry up over here. Okay. Cool. That's all the different questions we had, and we have pretty much covered all these things. So look, just to recap one more time in terms of what we have talked about. From completing the schedule, there is 4 steps that's required. Step number 1 is adding your demand signals. And obviously you're capable of adding as many different demand signals as you like. From there is building your required staff count. By the way, you actually don't need to add the demand signal to build a required staff count. You can actually just have it the fact that without any demand signal going straight into deputy and just putting your required staff count in there. You don't have to have the demand signals to build your required staff count. And then from there, building your shift structure. And from building shift structure, automatically filling your shifts. Matter of fact, the autofill empty shifts feature has been out in Deputy for the last 15 months in there. But as we started rolling that out, we figured out, hey, you can fill empty shifts all the time, but you couldn't come up with the best shift structure to fulfill that need. So that's why you actually have to go build out all these the shift building requirement. And when we went to building the shift building requirement, we needed to figure out, hey, how do you build shifts? You need to know the demands of the business. So we had to build all the demand signals in there. So as you can see, this journey we have taken in terms of putting on all these features together to drive to just one button in there. And we are not done yet. There'll be a lot of updates that will be coming over time. As I said, as founder and CEO, my vision is the fact that you don't even have to log into Deputy to do your rostering one day. It is done for you, and it'll be done better than any human can do. We're not there yet. We'll get there one day. Thank you. Thank you for joining this webinar. Hope you have enjoyed it, and we definitely want to keep you updated. There's quite a lot of great questions we have, especially on recipes and how you can meet minimum hours requirement in there. We will be posting help content on those, and obviously a video recording of this webinar will be available to all our customers. Thank you. Have a great day. Please, I cannot thank you enough for being a Deputy customer. I cannot thank you enough the fact that you're participating in this journey with us, and this is only gonna get better.